Hey everyone, welcome to Arcade Wire, the channel where I bring you the hottest news and reviews of all kinds of video games. In today's video, I'm going to share with you my thoughts on Final Fantasy XVI, the latest entry in the legendary RPG series from Square Enix. Is it worth your time and money? Let's find out. But before we get into the review, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more video game videos. And if you want to support me and get access to exclusive content and perks, you can also join my Patreon or become a channel member. The links are in the description below. Alright, let's talk about Final Fantasy XVI. This game has been one of the most anticipated games of the year, and for good reason. It's the first mainline Final Fantasy game since Final Fantasy XV in 2016, and it's also the first Final Fantasy game to be exclusive to the PS5. It's also a game that takes a lot of risks and breaks a lot of conventions for the series. So how does it hold up? Well, in my opinion, it's one of the best games in the series, and one of the best RPGs I've ever played. Let me tell you why. First of all, let's talk about the story. Final Fantasy XVI is a dark and gritty fantasy story that spans decades and follows the life of Clive Rosfield, a young nobleman who becomes entangled in a war between kingdoms, a curse that plagues the land, and a destiny that he can't escape. The story begins with Clive as a teenager, living in the kingdom of Rosaria with his brother Joshua and his friend Jill. Joshua is the dominant of Phoenix, which means he has a special bond with one of the icons, or summons, that inhabit this world. Icons are powerful creatures that can be summoned by their dominants to fight for them. There are 6 icons in total: Phoenix, Titan, Shiva, Ifrit, Leviathan, and Bahamut. Each icon belongs to one of the 6 kingdoms of Valisthea: Rosaria, Waloed, Dalmatia, Iron Kingdom, Crystallis, and Palestine. The 6 kingdoms have been at war for years over the Mother Crystals, giant crystals that provide magic and life to the land. However, a mysterious phenomenon called the Blight has been spreading across Valisthea, corrupting the land and the people. The Blight also affects the icons and their dominants, making them more violent and unstable. Clive's life changes forever when his kingdom is attacked by Ifrit, the icon of fire. Clive tries to protect his brother from Ifrit, but he fails. Joshua is killed by Ifrit, and Clive is left scarred by fire. Clive then learns that he has inherited Joshua's power as the dominant of Phoenix. He also learns that he has a role to play in a prophecy that involves stopping Bahamut, the icon of darkness. The story then jumps forward several years later, where Clive has become a mercenary working for Cid Sofiar. Yes, that's Cid, a former general who leads a rebellion against Palestine, the kingdom that controls Bahamut. Clive joins Cid's group along with Jill and other characters such as Jack, a rogue swordsman, Yuna, a healer, Gladiolus, a shield-bearer, and Ignis, a strategist. Together, they embark on a quest to stop Bahamut and end the Blight. The story of Final Fantasy XVI is amazing. It kept me hooked from start to finish with its twists and turns that I never saw coming. It has a rich and detailed world that is full of lore and secrets to discover. It has a cast of memorable and likable characters that I cared about deeply. And it has some jaw-dropping set pieces that are full of spectacle and emotion. The story is also very dark and mature for a Final Fantasy game. It deals with themes such as war, death, revenge, betrayal, sacrifice, destiny, and free will. It doesn't shy away from showing violence and bloodshed. It also doesn't have a clear-cut distinction between good and evil. Every character has their own motivations and flaws. Every kingdom has their own history and culture. Every icon has their own personality and agenda. The story is also very well written and well acted. The dialogue is natural and engaging. The voice acting is superb, especially for the main characters. The cutscenes are cinematic and immersive. The music is phenomenal, composed by the legendary Nobuo Uematsu and Masayoshi Soken. The music perfectly captures the mood and tone of each scene, from the epic battles to the tender moments. The story is also very long and satisfying. It took me about 50 hours to complete the main story, and there's still a lot of side content and post-game content to explore. There are side quests, mini-games, collectibles, secrets, and more. There are also multiple endings and choices that affect the outcome of the story. There's a lot of replay value and content to enjoy in Final Fantasy XVI. So, yeah, the story is definitely one of the strongest aspects of Final Fantasy XVI and one of the best stories in the series. But what about the gameplay? How does it compare to other Final Fantasy games? Well, let's talk about that next. Final Fantasy XVI is a departure from the turn-based combat that fans are used to, opting instead for a fast-paced and fluid action system that lets you switch between weapons, spells, and summons on the fly. The game also focuses on a single protagonist rather than a party of characters, giving you more control and immersion in Clive's journey. The combat system is very different from previous Final Fantasy games, but it's also very fun and satisfying. You control Clive in real time, using his sword, daggers, or axe to attack enemies. You can also use magic by holding down the L2 button and selecting one of 4 elements: fire, ice, lightning, or earth. Each element has different effects and properties depending on the enemy and the environment. You can also summon Phoenix by filling up a gauge that increases when you deal or take damage. When you summon Phoenix, you can unleash powerful attacks that deal massive damage to enemies. You can also use Phoenix's wings to fly around the battlefield and reach new areas. The combat system is very responsive and smooth. The animations are fluid and realistic. The feedback is satisfying and impactful. The sound effects are crisp and loud. The visuals are stunning and colorful. The combat system is also very challenging and rewarding. The enemies are smart and aggressive. They will dodge your attacks, counter your moves, and use their own abilities against you. You have to be quick and strategic to survive. You have to use your weapons, magic, and summons effectively. You have to manage your health, stamina, and MP carefully. You have to pay attention to your surroundings and use them to your advantage. The combat system is also very customizable and varied. You can equip different weapons, accessories, and skills to suit your playstyle. You can upgrade your weapons, magic, and summons by finding materials and crafting items. You can unlock new abilities and perks by leveling up and spending skill points. You can also change the difficulty level at any time if you want more or less challenge. The combat system is not perfect, though. It has some flaws and limitations that may frustrate some players. For example, the camera can be annoying at times, especially in tight spaces or when there are many enemies on screen. The lock-on system can be inconsistent and unreliable, sometimes switching targets randomly or losing track of enemies. The targeting system can be imprecise and inaccurate, sometimes missing enemies or hitting allies. The AI companions can be useless or annoying at times, either getting in your way or dying too easily. The summons can be overpowered or underwhelming at times, either making battles too easy or too hard. These issues are not game-breaking, but they can affect your enjoyment of the combat system. They may also make you miss the turn-based combat of previous Final Fantasy games. But overall, I think the combat system is very good for an action RPG. It may not be as refined or deep as some other games in the genre, such as Devil May Cry 5 or Bayonetta 2, but it's still very fun and satisfying to play. So yeah, the gameplay is another strong aspect of Final Fantasy XVI, but it's also a big change for the series. It may not appeal to everyone who prefers the classic Final Fantasy style or gameplay. But what about the other aspects of Final Fantasy XVI? How does it look? How does it run? How does it sound? Let's talk about that next. Final Fantasy XVI is a beautiful game that showcases the power of the PS5. It has stunning graphics that create a realistic and immersive world. It has smooth performance that delivers a consistent 60 frames per second gameplay experience. It has amazing sound design that enhances the atmosphere and emotion of each scene. The graphics are incredible in Final Fantasy XVI. The game uses Unreal Engine 5 to create a detailed and dynamic world that is full of life and diversity. The environments are gorgeous and varied, from lush forests to snowy mountains to desolate wastelands. The lighting is realistic and dynamic, creating different moods and effects depending on the time of day and weather. The shadows are sharp and accurate, adding depth and contrast to the scenes. The textures are high resolution and detailed, making everything look crisp and clear. The character models are lifelike and expressive, showing emotions and movements that match their personalities and actions. The animations are smooth and natural, making the characters and enemies move realistically and fluidly. The special effects are spectacular and flashy, making the magic and summons look impressive and powerful. The performance is also impressive in Final Fantasy XVI. The game runs at a solid 60 frames per second on the PS5, with no noticeable drops or stuttering. The game also supports ray tracing, which adds realistic reflections and shadows to the graphics. The game also has fast loading times, thanks to the PS5's SSD. The game loads almost instantly when you start it up, and there are no loading screens when you travel between areas or enter battles. The sound design is also amazing in Final Fantasy XVI. The game has a phenomenal soundtrack that perfectly captures the mood and tone of each scene, from the epic battles to the tender moments. The music is composed by the legendary Nobuo Uematsu and Masayoshi Soken, who have created some of the most memorable tunes in video game history. The music is also dynamic and adaptive, changing depending on what's happening on screen. The sound effects are crisp and loud, making the weapons, magic, and summons sound impactful and satisfying. The voice acting is superb, especially for the main characters. The voice actors deliver their lines with emotion and conviction, making the characters come alive. The graphics, performance, and sound design are all excellent in Final Fantasy XVI. They create a beautiful and immersive game that showcases the power of the PS5. So yeah, Final Fantasy XVI is a fantastic game that deserves your attention. It has an amazing story that will keep you hooked for hours. It has a fun and satisfying combat system that will challenge you and reward you. It has a beautiful and immersive world that will amaze you and surprise you. It's a game that will make you laugh, cry, cheer, and gasp. It's a game that will stay with you long after you finish it. Final Fantasy XVI is not perfect, though. It has some technical issues that may annoy you or distract you. It has some weak representation of women and minorities that may disappoint you or offend you. And it may not appeal to everyone who prefers the classic Final Fantasy style or gameplay. But overall, Final Fantasy XVI is an incredible game that sets a new gold standard for the series and for RPGs in general. It's a game that I highly recommend to anyone who loves video games. Final Fantasy XVI is available now exclusively on PS5 for $69.99 USD. You can buy it from the PlayStation Store or from your local retailer. And that's it for my review of Final Fantasy XVI. I hope you enjoyed it and found it helpful. If you did, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more video game videos. And let me know in the comments what you think of Final Fantasy XVI. Have you played it? Do you like it? Do you agree or disagree with my review? I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you want to support me and get access to exclusive content and perks, you can also join my Patreon or become a channel member. The links are in the description below. Thanks for watching and see you next time.